Hi guys, welcome back to another video lessons for English presentation. So what you're seeing now is the last time, the lessons for last week that I uploaded already. So hopefully by now you've already watched them. But if you haven't, do go back to study these materials because in class this week, I'm going to teach the week 12 material. So, and this video, unless you studied the previous video, you're not going to understand fully or completely the things I've taught here. So like I said, last video, I talked about self and peer evaluation and types of presentation in part 1. And the part 2 video is about types of presentation, instructional and persuasive. So for this week's video, I'm going to talk about rhetorical devices, okay? And the things that we're going to do here, it's going to be on this side, see? And then in week 12 and 13, that's between 9 to the 13th of November and 16 to the 20th of November. Those 2 weeks will be for individual advertisement assessment. So next week we see in class, the date, it's still week 11, but the content will be the content of week 12 instead. Okay? If you still have questions or still confused about the lesson plan, ask me. Okay? Now, I also already uploaded the content for next week with this one, okay? The one that I showed you, the title week 10 to 11 persuasive presentation, that already includes what I'm going to talk today, okay? It already shows you the rhetoric part, but not the video lessons yet. So this part, from this part on, okay, rhetoric, that's what I'm going to talk within this video, and also the practice, okay? So it's still the same PowerPoints, okay? It's not a different one, but I've cut it down to have only rhetoric parts, so don't get confused, okay? Okay, so let's start with rhetoric. You've already heard the word rhetorical question, right? Well, rhetorical, that word is adjective, but rhetoric here is noun. Rhetorical question is the question you use in the introduction to stimulate, to open the statement, to encourage the audience to think about something. You're going to persuade them to think in a certain way, and the way you frame that question, rhetorical question, that's actually one method to persuade the audience. But for the word rhetoric, it's the method or the art of persuading someone. And there are actually more details about this, and you can see it in the video called How to Use Rhetoric to Get What You Want. So there's a relationship between rhetoric and persuasion. And you can watch this video to really be clear about what rhetoric is. So I suggest you go watch that YouTube, okay? A self-study method. Now, for what I'm going to talk next is going to be the definition of rhetoric. So make sure you watch the video first and then come to terms with what it is in your head, and then I'm going to talk next about my interpretation of rhetoric and also the 3 types of persuasive speech. Now, the rhetoric means the art of seeing the available means of persuasion. So it's the way if you found anything that involves the arts of persuasion, you can use the word rhetoric, but in an adjective form. So it becomes rhetorical question, rhetorical approach, rhetorical language, for example. So lots of different terms. Now, when the things that you have to know about rhetoric are that there are types of rhetoric, okay? And in your persuasive speech, you can persuade people through your words and language with these three approaches. Okay, you can be forensic. See, so the rhetoric is a head noun here, but the adjective is forensic or judicial. This one you might have heard this word from CSI. From forensic means so you can imagine like guys in white suit and who collect evidence. See, and they have to analyze in very minute details of the traces of blood or of any evidence that of how the killer killed this person and left any evidence at all. So think of like an icon of a magnifying glass. Okay, if you do something forensic or judicial, so that the speech that you use is actually you are using facts and judgments. So think of like statistics or scientific facts, for example. Okay, and this one so it's a judgment about the past, similar to detectives at a crime scene. Like I said, the comparison. Okay, so you try to persuade another person to believe in what you're saying, but through cold hard facts. Okay, through facts and judgments. But with epideictic or demonstrative rhetoric, that it's about making a proclamation about the present situation, as in wedding speeches. So, kind of like, so imagine that if you have to persuade someone, but with the current state of the situation, you might use it through humor, or it's just like an observation of the present. So imagine Note Udom, like a comedian who's quite observant of the people's interaction with each other, and they'll say, if any woman says, I can eat anything, don't believe women who said that, because actually they have the long list of food in their mind of what they actually don't want to eat, but they prefer not to say it. So it's the guy's job to guess what the woman actually wants to eat. Okay, so like that's an example. And for the last one, deliberative rhetoric or symbolaticon, it's actually about, rather than the past or the present, it's actually the rhetoric that focuses on the future. So with this one, instead of just saying what is happening now, what's the problem now, actually they're foreseeing the future. They are like predicting something. So if you want to persuade people to love the earth more, to actually like reduce global warming, those kind of speech, yes, when they talk about how to save the planet now, they talk about recycle, they talk about using the car less to lessen the carbon dioxide, for example. Instead of saying that, they're focusing on the future of, if you want a better world for your child or your children, you have to save the world now. See, so that's the projection to the future. So to recap again, okay, with forensic, that thing has already happened. So you try to persuade people by pointing out the mistakes in the past. So for example, like the facts and figure in the past that from 1950, humans have never stopped using nature resources, and the more we use it, the less we have. And these are facts and figures to support that we are using too much of the resources until today. So their facts and figures, it's very forensic. It explored, and it this approach look at the details that already happened, but to convince people that because there are mistakes in the past, we have to change something in the present. Okay, but with epideictic, that this one, demonstrative rhetoric, it's actually about the present. So when you want to convince people using this approach, you talk like wedding speeches, this example. So it means that, oh, I've known the bride for a long time and she's my best friend. And I can guarantee that anyone who knows her knows that she's a kind person. She's the nicest person you can be with, is whether you are happy or sad. See, all these things. The bridesmaid is talking about the bride's good quality right now at the present to convince that she's a good friend and she has enough good qualities to be a good wife too. Okay, so talk about the present. But with the last one, deliberative rhetoric or symbolioticon, that is actually about projecting the future. So sometimes you might want to make people change their behaviors or do something, then you project. Sometimes you claim that in the future you are going to have a bad ending, you're going to end up in jail unless you change your behaviors today. You're doing all the bad things, all the risky things. If you don't change anything today, I can guarantee you that in 3 years, you're going to end up in jail, for example. See? So that's the focus on the future. The big why? Because sometimes the present's behavior is not that clear or it doesn't look bad. Like, oh, I just drink bubble tea every day. What's the harm in that? But if you focus on the future, actually you can portray a picture of a person who's overweight, who has high blood pressure, who has diabetes, and that really makes the person's life harder because of the health problems that will follow, for example. Okay, so these are just like in general the 3 types of persuasive speech. So make sure you understand the concept. Okay, it's going to be in the quiz, I guarantee you. And other 3 persuasive appeals. So that's the approach, right? If you want to persuade someone, you think of their past behaviors, the past facts, statistics. You talk about the present impact. When you do this, it will affect these people. Or you can talk about the future. Unless you change something today, in the future you're going to get in trouble, for example. But that's like the timeline, right? That's like the focus of the time, the approaches. But with appeals, so how are you going to convince them really? Well, you can appeal. So appeal means how are you going to make the audience be on your side, okay, to agree with you? Well, there are 3 ways you can be appealed to them. First is via ethos, okay? It's how you convince an audience of your credibility. So imagine that you are going to open a tutoring school. You want to teach math, you want to teach science to like Matayom students, secondary school students, right? But why would the parents want to pay you to teach their children? Well, you have to build your ethos. You have to convince them that you are good enough in English to teach them. Well, I graduated from Mae Fa Luang University with golden medal or with the GPAX or GPA of 4.00. See, that's one way of convincing them with your credibility that you're good enough to do that. You can trust me. You can believe me. Okay. But with logos, actually, it's the use of logic, reason, and facts. So for this one, you know that for some people, you can't just say that you're good enough for their children. They won't believe you. They believe that grades are just numbers on paper. It doesn't guarantee your ability. It's okay. Then appeal to them by logic instead. So if the parents said, I can teach my own children. I don't want to pay expensive fees for others to teach my children. Well, you can use logic, reason, and facts. You can say, okay, we all have 24 hours a day. The parents might have already spent 12 hours at work, but when they're at home, instead of those 2 hours to teach your children, you might not have enough ability to teach the children. If you see like maybe elementary or secondary school homework, you can see that nowadays it's very advanced. It's more complicated than what the parents have been taught in the past. So logically, see, you can't have people who have like the what you call old system knowledge, some knowledge that might have already been dated. It can't be used at the present anymore. That kind of knowledge in the parent's head might not be enough for today's competition. Because these days you need to know a lot to have a competitive edge, to be above others, to actually be better than others. See? So logically, you need, this is through logic, okay, through hard facts, okay? If the parents don't have enough or efficient knowledge to teach the children, then why not have the people who are ready, who are more equipped, who have more knowledge to teach your children, so that your children can surpass any other students. See, you can appeal to them with logic, with reason. This is not about emotion. This is about facts. Okay, have someone better to teach your children, so that your children can go further than what you can teach them. See, but the last one with pathos is actually an appeal to emotion. So imagine that lots of Thai advertisement, especially the insurance one, Thai ประกันชีวิต, Thai insurance, for example, they're famous for not through ethos or logos approach in their advertisement, but actually they appeal to emotion more. So you can see like almost like if you watch the advertisement for insurance, it's almost like a mini series. You have like these this hardship of like maybe relationship in the family, that the maybe you see an office worker who works a lot and who doesn't have time for his or her family, and then one day the parents of this office worker got sick and then sent to the hospital, and actually the office worker doesn't have enough money to pay for the hospital bills. But who's the hero? In the end, it was the insurance guy who came and paid for the hospital bills to save the family members. See, and the last image you see, maybe the last impression is that the family became happy again because because the family member who were in the hospital got treated and what you call like are feel well again, are fine again. It's because of the health insurance that this office worker bought to show that you care about your family. See, so they appeal to your emotion, that if you love your family, if you want to take care of your parents, buy health insurance for them. See, that's for example. So you don't appeal like, there are more than 10,000 people died every day because they don't have health insurance. Well, that if you appeal them that way, that's it. That's logos, okay? Logic, reason, facts. But if you tell them that, Thai insurance has been established for more than 80 years, so we are one of the oldest Thai insurance company that doesn't stop improving their service, but has stand beside Thai people for a long time. See, that's the credibility to show that we are not just a new insurance company. We've been open for a long time, so you can trust us. We have good system that makes us stay in the game for so long. See, that's ethos. But if it's pathos, see, it's actually about emotion. So you've got sad scenes, sad stories, almost like a drama, and then you got a resolution in the end. People are happy again because their loved ones are saved. buy the insurance. See? Now, which of them to use is a matter of knowing your audience. See? So the way, even if you have the same product, okay, insurance company, you want to buy an insurance health package, for example, you all have the same product. There are so many like insurance broker in the country, but how each company or each broker sell their health insurance products are different because they appeal to different audience group, see, with different purpose and different place and time. So in order to determine which is the best appeals, you have to decide for yourself according to your audience, purpose, and right place and time. Okay? And now, so think about what is the most powerful persuasive appeal today. You can maybe you can compare, like in the past you might see these kinds of advertisement a lot, but these days they tend to be short, or they tend to be cool, they tend to be like sometimes funny. Unless you have funny video, no one would watch them, for example. So think for yourself, what do you think of the persuasive appeal today? And why, and what are the examples?